Latiki was the daughter of the leader of the Laguna Pueblo tribe, an indigenous community living in the semi-arid central west region of New Mexico, near the city of Albuquerque. Around 1905, she was photographed wearing ceremonial clothing known as kawaik, which included a worked belt and bead necklaces. The image captures an important moment in Laguna culture by showing the traditional attire used in rituals and solemn occasions, reflecting the heritage preserved by tribe members across generations. The photograph, taken in 1908 and attributed to Roland Reed, shows a woman from the Ojibwa tribe, offering a direct portrait of her cultural and historical context. The record reveals elements of her clothing and surroundings, providing a broader view of living conditions at the time. By observing her expression and possible details of her community, we can understand crucial aspects of the tribe's daily life. The photograph, taken by Carl Wernz in 1900, shows two girls from the Hopi tribe in Hopi, Arizona, positioned in front of a window. They watch what is happening outside, and their faces show attention and engagement with what they see. The framing highlights the moment when the two of them come together by the opening, allowing the viewer to notice the interaction between them and the outside space. In this photograph from 1878, we see a member of the Cheyenne tribe, a people native to the North American plains, known for their cultural traditions and social organization. The image was taken at Fort Keogh, an area located in Montana that at the time served as a military post established by the United States. The photograph shows three women from the Isleta Pueblo community: Carlotta Chiwiwi and her daughters, Maria and Felicita Tura. Taken in the early 20th century by photographer Poli, it provides clues about these women's daily lives at the time. The visual record helps us understand their way of life and the cultural practices of their community. The photograph, taken by Frederick Monson around 1900, shows a group of girls from the Hopi tribe, originally from Sikamovi village on First Mesa in Arizona. They appear side by side wearing traditional clothing that reflects the Hopi culture's own customs and practices. This record offers a look at how these girls presented themselves, highlighting the importance of preserving cultural aspects over time. In the photograph, taken in 1895, we see a girl from the Taos Pueblo community, located in northern New Mexico. The scene reveals a moment of her daily life at that time, allowing a glimpse of the context she was part of. Taos Pueblo is recognized for its long historical trajectory and for keeping its traditions alive through generations, showing the strong cultural connection between its inhabitants and the place they live in. In the image, there is a young woman from the Kiowa tribe, photographed in 1892. Her traditional outfit indicates aspects of the culture and craftsmanship characteristic of these people, while her posture and expression may reflect her position in the community. The environment around her, though not shown in great detail, suggests elements of Kiowa daily life, mirroring social practices and values passed down over generations. In the photograph, produced in 1897, you can see a woman from the Spokane tribe, an indigenous group that lives in the northeastern region of Washington state, in the United States. The record was made by Frank LaRoche and shows details of her clothing and the environment around her, illustrating aspects of her community's daily life. By examining it, it's possible to understand part of the history and traditions of the native peoples of that era, since the image serves as a document connecting the time it was taken to our current perspective. In 1904, a photographic record captured the image of a woman from the Pueblo people, possibly in New Mexico, representing what is known as the corn spirit. This figure reflects the strong connection between the community and the cultivation that provides sustenance and spiritual expression. By looking at this portrait, we can see how corn plays a central role in Pueblo traditions, revered as a symbol of life and cultural heritage. At the beginning of the 20th century, Carl Everton Moon took on a bold mission: to photograph Native American communities before Western influence completely transformed their customs. He believed that each portrait would be more than just an image. It would be a living testimony of indigenous culture in its most authentic state. This project led him to explore lesser-known regions, where each click of the camera became part of a historical record. At the end of the 19th century, a photograph shows a woman from the Taos Pueblo tribe, revealing precious details of her routine and culture. The image captures how she dresses, her features, and how she presents herself in the community's context. This record doesn't just show a person. It highlights the heritage passed down through generations, inviting viewers to reflect on the importance of preserving customs and histories. At the turn of the 1880s, the United States was undergoing intense social, political, and cultural changes. In this setting, Marsha Pascal emerged, whose heritage combined Cherokee roots with the influence of her father, George Pascal, a prominent officer in the country's army. Her name drew attention because it brought together those two realities, reflecting both the tradition of her indigenous people and the significance of military service in her family. In 1894, a Kiowa woman lived under constant pressure from the changes sweeping through her people's territory. With every encounter with outsiders, her ancestral traditions clashed with new ways of life, creating both internal and collective conflicts. Even so, she persisted in keeping the teachings she had inherited alive, while closely watching how her community's culture was being tested. In 1900, a photograph shows a young Native American woman in her traditional attire, giving us a vivid glimpse of a culture that remains alive despite challenges. Every detail in her clothing carries symbols that reveal ancestral values and reflect her community's identity. By observing this scene, we don't just see a moment in the history of the United States, but also the power of indigenous roots that span generations. In 1899, Frank Reinhardt immortalized a moment that transcends time, a photograph of Hattie, a member of the Apache tribe. This record connects us to a period when tradition stood strong against the transformations of the late 19th century. By looking at Hattie's face, we see not just the traits of her culture, but also the strength of a people who face challenges without losing their roots. Elsie Vance Chestuan is a name that sparks curiosity and links us to the story of a people defined by resilience. A member of the Chiricahua tribe, she represents an identity shaped in a time filled with obstacles. The Chiricahua, in turn, were one of the subdivisions of the Apache, recognized for their ability to adapt to the transformations that came with colonization and the American expansion into their lands. In 1886, while grand shows toured the cities, stirring up curiosity and drawing crowds, Lizzie Longwolf rose to prominence in Buffalo Bill's show, becoming part of a scene in which every performance was a gateway to little-known stories. In this vibrant atmosphere, she not only entertained but also offered the audience a glimpse of cultures rarely seen outside that setting. In 1895, a single photo captured the face of a young Hopi woman. At that moment, her traditional clothing and features revealed far more than just appearance. They reflected cultural traits spanning generations. By looking at this image, you can notice details that speak to identity, customs, and the way of life of this native people. Every piece of clothing tells part of a story passed down from ancestors to descendants, hinting at the community's daily life and the beliefs that guided it. In 1899, Frank Reinhardt's camera immortalized a moment that merges history and identity, a photograph of Hattie, a member of the Chiricahua Apache tribe. In this record, every detail of her face and traditional attire reveals part of a legacy passed on through generations. Hattie's expression suggests pride and respect for her roots, while her clothing offers clues about the cultural richness of the Chiricahua Apache people. In 1886, a photograph captured Isabel Peraco and Hattie, a member of the Chiricahua Apache tribe, as a prisoner of war. Her gaze reflects the pressures of an era shaped by conflicts and territorial disputes, when colonizing forces advanced on native communities. This record goes beyond a personal story, as it also exposes the tensions between different cultures. Dating back to the early 1900s, this photograph shows Alice, an indigenous woman whose original tribe hasn't been confirmed yet. There are indications that she might have belonged to the Cayuse, Walla Walla, or Umatilla peoples. Her face, her clothing, and the surrounding scene offer clues about the culture and identity she carried with her. Every detail in this record helps us understand her roots, inviting us to reflect on the traditions of these native peoples and the legacy Alice may have represented. In 1885, a photograph immortalized the face of a young Comanche woman. She appears on the scene with striking features, dressed according to her people's traditions, surrounded by elements that reveal snippets of this tribe's daily life. The expression in her eyes may reflect pride or curiosity, while the details in her clothing hint at ways of life that often remain unknown to outside observers. In the early 20th century, a photographer captured the moment a young Hopi woman was preparing for her wedding day. The image shows symbolic details surrounding this celebration, a vital aspect of indigenous culture in the southwestern United States. She wears traditional attire, carefully adorned, each piece carrying stories passed down through generations. These garments not only embellish the bride, but also reinforce her people's strong connection to their ancestry. In a photograph taken in 1886, we see Julie Nelson in the typical attire of that time. Frozen in that moment, she sparks curiosity about who she was and how she lived. The expression on her face and her posture in the picture offer hints about her emotions, though today we can only imagine what was truly on her mind. In 1895, George A. Addison painted Amy and Carrie Kiowa, bringing forth the striking presence of these two figures against the island's landscape. Each brushstroke reveals subtle details that highlight not only Amy and Carrie's expressions, but also the mood that surrounds them. The choice of colors and the way the scene is composed draw the viewer closer, almost as if they could hear the whispers of that place. In the 1880s, a group of young Comanche women stood out by taking on responsibilities that ensured their people's survival and kept their customs going strong. They played an active role in the daily life of the community, handling essential tasks and supporting the local economy during a time of change. Besides contributing to everyday activities, these women preserved their ancestral heritage, passing on teachings they had received from previous generations. Their commitment to the Comanche people's traditions and wisdom revealed the collective strength that sustained the tribe.